There you go.
There you go. Now we're in business. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much to our panelists for attending today and for attending to my invitation. I think this is a great topic that we definitely need to talk about. Also, thank you to our attendees for taking the time today to be with us. And I just want to make sure everybody can see us well and hear us well. So if you just use the chat to say yes, that'll be great. That way I know that everybody can see us and hear us well. Thank you so much. Okay, I see they're typing yes. So this is really cool. I really like it because, you know, we can communicate with a lot of people this way. So today, our topic of the day is organ donations and the truth about organ donations. And I'm gonna let our panelists introduce themselves, but before I do, I also wanna encourage all of our attendees to make any questions that you would like using the chat box. So as questions are coming, just please write your questions in the chat because I'm going to be reading the questions to our panelists, and that way we're going to be answering your questions, okay? We don't want to leave any questions unanswered. That's really what these community chats are about. It's like, yes, we have the panelists, but it's really for us to be able to answer any questions from the community. So thank you for joining and thank you for your participation. So let me start. So I'm Sandra Arevalo and I'm the moderator for these community chats, and I'm the Montefiore Nyack Community and Patient Education Director. And that's what we do, just basically try to connect with the community and serve the community to the best of our ability, taking into consideration that there are also great organizations out there that we are working with that we like to highlight, like it's the case today with Live On New York. And Scott, why don't we start with you and you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Scott Wall, and I am the Senior Manager for Community and Government Affairs at Live On New York. I focus on educating the community and engaging them on the importance of organ donation.
Thank you. Roxanne?
I'm Roxanne Watson. I am former Nyack patient many times over and heart transplant recipient from Monty Moses.
Very good. Eileen?
Hi, I'm Eileen Thiesing. I'm the Director of Patient Placement here at Montefiore Nyack, and I am the liaison for the Live On New York liaison and the iDonor Bank as well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. So you can tell we have great people here, and why don't we start with you, Roxanne? Like, you know, I love stories, so I think that everybody loves stories, but I think that, you know, you cannot talk about organ donation without having a great story behind it. So why don't we start with you and you tell us your story?
Well, in 2006, I was working in a store in the Bronx, actually, and I was lifting some boxes, and I thought I pulled a muscle. I came home. I live here in Nanuet, and I came home. I didn't think anything about it. I continued to go back and forth from work for about 6 weeks with a little bit of pain. It was just a pain in the left side of my back. And it didn't go away. So after about 6 weeks, I said, I better go get it checked out. And I came actually to Monty Nyack, to the emergency room. And I told them that I pulled a muscle and it's been 6 weeks and it's a little too long. And they said, okay. They took some tests and they came back to me and they said, oh, nope, you didn't pull a muscle. You had a heart attack. So I walked around for 6 weeks with what you guys know is a silent heart attack. And that's what it was diagnosed as. They put me into cardiac care with the group at Dr. Greenwald and his group. And I went back and forth there and back and forth to you guys for colonoscopies, all kinds of stuff for 2 years, from June of 2006 to June of 2008. And then 2008, they came to me and they said, you're not getting any better, so we're going to have to send you to the city for advanced cardiac care. So they sent me to Monty Moses And I went into evaluation for 9 days in the hospital. And at the end of the 9 days, Dr. Shin, who was my cardiologist, came to me and said, we have good news and we have bad news. I said, give me the bad news first. She said, the bad news is your heart is failing, but the good news is we're going to put you on a transplant list. I didn't think that was good news, but it is what it was, you know. So they put me on the transplant list in 2008. And then famous last words, you have B positive blood. I still remember that conversation. You have B positive blood. It shouldn't be, you know, too bad or long a wait. 2 years later, I'm still waiting. In Christmas time of 2009, I started rapidly losing weight at 5 pounds, 6 pounds every couple of days. That's how bad it was. I went from 155 to 95 pounds by April. In April, they said, you know, we can't let you stay home anymore because if you stay home, you're going to die. So they put me into inpatient at Monty Moses, and that's where I sat for 78 days, waiting, and a total of 104 days altogether. It was horrible. It was just a horrible thing. I just, you know, you just laying there and you're hoping to God somebody comes and saves you. I had offers of 3 hearts before I got my heart. First heart came and the heart was not accepted by the team. The second heart came and I was the second person that was 1A and the first person got it. And then the third heart was offered as a high-risk heart at the time. It was an HIV positive heart. And so I was given the, you know, given the chance. They said, you know, it's HIV positive. Do you want to take it? And I was like, no. At that point, I was so sick. I said, you know, I don't want to deal with something else. Either I get the heart or I'm going to die. And that's basically what it came down to. In July of 2010, now this is almost 4 years since I left Monty Nyack, I received the heart of this gentleman right here. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
That's Michael Bolville, United States Coast Guard. He was a fireman. He was an EMT. He was a helicopter mechanic. A good kid. He had an accident on the George Washington Bridge, actually. He was on his motorcycle going back to his base in Long Island, and they're not sure if he was hit or he fell, but, you know, they took him to Harlem Hospital that night, and they felt like he wasn't going to make it. They contacted his family. His family came, and they fought and did everything they could do until, this was Sunday night, until Wednesday of that week, and then his family decided that they wanted to donate. There were 2 of us, actually. The heart, I got the heart, and a young man, Elijah, got his kidney, and they were both at Monty. We were both at Monty. His lungs went to Colombia to a 42-year-old Jewish man. His liver went to Mount Sinai to a 62-year-old Chinese man. A 5-year-old girl in Staten Island, Hispanic girl, got his other kidney. So he saved all of us. Were completely different. He saved a Chinese person, a Jewish person, 2 Black people. You know, it's just like, it doesn't even matter. And we love to tell his story because we love to show people that race and all of that stuff has nothing to do with organ donation. Organ donation is all about blood and tissues and just human being. So we love to tell his story. About 11 months after I received his heart, I got a surprise that Miss Oprah Winfrey found my donor family. So I got to meet them on Oprah in front of a small crowd of 14 million people.
Oh.
Yeah, so we love to tell the story. And since then, we have been out here on the road, sharing our story and making sure people sign up. That's what I live for. I'm very proud to say I have signed up almost 12,000 people for organ donation. And we want to make sure we keep it going. We have a radio show on WRCR, on Rockland Radio, every Wednesday, and we share stories of patients. It's a patient-centered story. And that's what we do every Wednesday. And that's what I've been doing.
See, I didn't know about that radio. You should send me an email with the information so I can send it out to the community.
I will.
And do it. Yes.
Absolutely. I totally will.
Well,
It's a great show because it's like I said, it's, you know, people say that things are patient-centered. This is patient-centered. It's only patients that tell their story.
mhm.
And we tell stories about transplant and heart disease, obviously very, very dear to me. I'm a volunteer at American Heart Association and Women Heart too.
Yeah.
And Montefiore Moses.
And it's a very touching story, and I
Yeah.
know Live On had something to do with that as well.
Yes. They
So
were
Scott, why don't you tell
sneaking
us,
around. They were all sneaking around.
tell us what Live On is? What was your role?
Sure, Aaron, I'm going to try and share my screen really quickly, if that's all right, because I do have 1 or 2 slides to share with everybody. There we go.
Mhm.
All right. So essentially, Live On New York is one of 58 federally designated procurement organizations, which we each have our own territory, our own part of the United States where we operate and function. And I'll get into ours in a moment. But essentially, we perform 4 functions, as I like to see it. Number 1, which is what Eileen is familiar with, we work with hospitals to facilitate transplant and to make sure that when donors are identified, we work with their families and to facilitate that transplant procedure as far as the recovery, the transport to one of our 11 different transplant centers. What we also do that a lot of folks don't know about, I think, is we care for the families of those who've been donors. We have tremendous amount of time, energy, and resources dedicated to aftercare, grief counseling, bereavement groups, really do try to form that partnership and that bond that goes on for the life of the family. We have plenty of folks that we've worked with for many, many years because they made the decision on behalf of a loved one to become an organ donor. Additionally, and then when you get to the bottom half of those 4, this is sort of the area where I operate in, we educate the community. New York is a very challenging community when it comes to organ donation. We do all that we can to raise awareness, to spread the word, to encourage, to explain the process to people so that it's not mystical or anything to be afraid of. And then finally, we also advocate on behalf of those who are waiting for a transplant. We work with our state, county, and federal lawmakers to make sure that there are laws in place that help ease the transplant process as well as the enrollment process. And that's sort of the focus where our team is. I mentioned before that we each have our own service area. This is a map of our service area. As you can see, it includes 12 counties in New York State and actually Pike County in Pennsylvania. Within those 12 counties in New York, primarily, we have about 100 different hospital partners that we work with, hospitals like Montefiore Nyack, and 11 different transplant centers like Montefiore Moses. So it's a very big area. It's 12 counties, about 13 million people in the population, making it one of the largest in the United States. But we operate within those geographic boundaries. As far as what we've done, I just wanted to include this to show that over the 40 years that we've been in operation, we've saved over 20,000 lives through organ donation. That's pretty significant, and that's not even hyperbole. That's a fact. That's medical fact. 20,000 people, 220,000 people have benefited from organ donation. If you go over, you'll see that even through tissue donation, which is also an area we operate in, tissue, eye, bone, cornea, 500,000 people, 500,000 people's lives have been improved through those donations. And again, that can be a variety of different areas, but tissue for burn victims, corneas, returning the gift of sight, it's really phenomenal. If you go over in the other corner, you'll see the 6 million people have registered. Actually, that number, this slide is a little bit old. We have almost 6.5 million people in New York State now are registered as organ donors, which is tremendous and helps make the job easier for everybody else. However, I would be remiss, I think, if I didn't mention that New York does rank 50th in the nation when it comes to organ donor enrollment. Nationwide, about 60% of the population is enrolled as a donor, and here in New York, we're only at about 40%. So that's why opportunities like today are invaluable. So I can't really thank you enough for letting us be a part of your show today, Tondra.
Nice.
Well, this is great information, and I can't believe, like the extension and the amount of people that are really living in this area. And however, even though it looks like a lot of people are donating organs, it's not enough, I think, because given that so many millions of people, are living in this part of the world. So tell me, how do you become an organ donor, Scott? Like, what if I'm interested in donating, what's the process?
Well, I think most folks are familiar with the typical visit to your local DMV branch. That's obviously the #1 place where folks sign up to become organ donors. But also New York, again, recognizing the difficulty we have or the lagging number of enrollees, there's plenty of other opportunities. New York is the only state where when you register to vote, you can sign up to be an organ donor. When you go online through the Health Benefit Exchange to secure your health insurance each year, there's a question there and an opportunity to enroll to become an organ donor. Even several municipal ID programs, as far as even in the New York City area, the ID NYC, there's a question and an opportunity to sign up to become an organ donor. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention it because it was sponsored or co-sponsored by both of your local state senators, Senator Carlucci and Skoufis. There's a bill that's going to be law next year that when you sign up for your hunting, fishing, or trapping license, you'll also be asked the question if you'd like to become an organ donor. So those are the major portals where we utilize or leverage our access to the public. But certainly at any point in time, anybody is free to go online. They can visit our website, www.liveonny.org, to enroll online. As well as, I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything. Roxanne, did I miss anything? I think that's everybody, right?
No. Every portal we can get in that has New York State on it, we're in it.
But to your question, Sandra, I would say the most important thing someone can do is if they want to be an organ donor is make sure that their family knows, their loved ones, their caregivers, the people who are going to be by their side when they're their most vulnerable and weakest, because they're the ones that may have to make that decision or at least agree to that decision. So it's most important to discuss it with your family to take that burden off of them so they would know exactly what you would want to do.
So even if I sign as an organ donor, and for example, I live in New Jersey, so in New Jersey, you know, every time that you're gonna renew your license, they ask you and they just put the sign on your driver's license. So it's still, it doesn't matter if the license says so, like your family will have the last word.
There's always going to be a conference with the family to make sure that they're comfortable and aware of your decision and comfortable with your decision. However, it is worth noting that the agreement to become an organ donor, that is a binding contract, more so as far as we're obligated to honor your wishes. So there is that legal component to it, but there's always a conversation with the family to make them aware of what your decision was and your preference.
And who does that conversation with the families? Is that you guys in Live On, or is that the hospital, Eileen? Like,
it will be Live On New York that has the actual conversation. So all hospitals are responsible for reporting deaths within 1 hour or imminent deaths. The imminent deaths are those people that may end up in the ICU, and it's determined that really through all interventions, there's no hope. And we try to contact Live On New York early on in the process so that they can become familiar with the patient and look, at the record and what have you, and they will approach the family. They are experts at it. They're just wonderful people that, approach the families very gently, with lots of experience, and they support them through the whole process from beginning to end. So they will have the conversation.
mm-hmm. Now, I feel that there is a lot of talk about like how to become a donor, right? But what about from the point of view of the recipient? Like, are there enough organs out there in case I needed one, or my family, somebody from my family needed an organ? Scott?
Roxanne, would you like to share your process? Because you went through this firsthand as far as what it takes to actually get listed and wait.
Yeah.
You talked about it a little bit too.
We never know, right? Like, we feel healthy right now. We're all sitting here having fun, but the truth is, what if tomorrow I need an organ, or somebody, in my family needs one? Like, what will be the process?
Well, obviously, it would be up to the physicians to list you, depending on how bad you were. Like, I was listed as Stat 2. There's different statuses. When I was first listed, I was listed as Stat 2. And what I was told when I was given that status was that you are Stat 2. You have to go to 1A before you receive, but 2 puts you on the list, but she said it's not eminent at Stat 2. In other words, I'm on the list, but there's so many other people that are more, it's more urgent for other people. So I stayed at Stat 2 for about 1.5 years. And as I deteriorated, I went to 1B, and then in the end, I was 1A, which means you're next up for the match. So I did go through that. Some people go through the system in no time, but I had other health issues. I had Crohn's disease and antibodies, so that there were things that they had to do in order for me to accept the organ. So it wasn't so easy for me, but some people go straight through, right through in a short period of time, but it was a little bit longer for me. Mm-hmm. As you're in the hospital, you're tested every week. Your blood's tested every Thursday, and they send it to Virginia to those people, and then they put you on the list according to how sick you are, basically.
And what are the waiting times? Do you have any information on the waiting times? I guess it depends based on what you just said. Like it could be, you know, if you're on a B list versus an A list, but
Absolutely.
is
And
there
what-
like an average wait time for an organ?
And what organ, it matters what organ you're waiting for too.
Mm.
No,
Kidneys are the worst, right? Right, Scott?
yeah, no, specifically, I think Roxanne mentioned that kidneys, heart and liver and lung, these tend to be much more significant, dire, life-threatening circumstances. So it's not necessarily as long of a wait. But when it comes to kidney donation in New York State, the wait is terribly long. Nationwide, you're looking at an average about 2 to 3 years, perhaps, waiting, and this is time on dialysis, most likely. In New York, it can be upwards of 7 years that wait. And anybody who's familiar with dialysis understands that 7 years on a dialysis machine there's no quality of life left. So it's really unbelievably important that we enroll as many donors as we possibly can through folks like Roxanne, and that families say yes to donation on behalf of their loved ones.
And if I might interject, currently there's 110,000 men, women, and children that are waiting on, you know, the organ transplant list. There are 10,000 people alone in New York that are waiting for those transplants. And most of those, the great majority, are for kidneys as well. Every 10 minutes, another person gets added to that transplant list. So it cannot be overstated that we really need organ donation to be on that front line and to make people aware of it and educate why we need it. It's really saving lives, giving the gift of life to people and to their families, because everyone's impacted around that person that is waiting for that organ.
Eileen, I think that's very important information. So can you repeat that? How many people did you say are waiting?
110,000 people on the transplant list, and there are 10,000 alone in New York. And the great majority are waiting for kidneys. And again, every 10 minutes, there is another person added to that transplant list. And there are 8,000 deaths a year in the US due to lack of an available organ. People run out of time waiting. Inferred earlier, you know, she was very, very sick by the time she ultimately got her heart. And also there's 22 people that die each day. Yeah. And there's every 18 hours, a New Yorker dies for waiting for an organ. So these are really astounding statistics.
Yeah. It's
Scott,
tough.
Why, like, we know this. Now we know. Thank you, Eileen. This is crazy. We know this, and still there are so many people, you know, millions out there who could be donors, and they don't sign up for it. Why? Why is that? Like, you guys know the answer?
Education. That's all it is. Education. Because so many people have so many myths, and, you know, they're afraid, and their religion and all the things are education. And you know what? And the reason why, not that I'm so fabulous, but the reason why I'm able to do what I do is because I'm able to talk to people. I go to the mall, I have a table at the mall, I talk to people, and they come up to the table and they always say, well, no, I don't want to do it, my family, or they're going to kill me, all of these things that are not true. But once you have a conversation with a person, it's most likely that unless they really, really don't want to do it, they sign up. That's all it is. I'm, you know, able to have a conversation, and I'm a person that went through it. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, and they don't see me as threatening, like I'm gonna take their organs, you know. I'm showing them Michael's picture, and I'm telling them what I went through, and that I don't want anybody else to ever go through that. And that's why I do what I do, and I'm able to sign people up because of that. And once they're educated, they do it.
Actually, last year in October, Montefiore Nyack participated in organ enrollment or organ donation enrollment day. And Roxanne was vital to that. And I think it's very hard for people to look away because you're actually looking at a recipient, not just talking about a number. And when you actually, you know, see someone so vital and energetic as Roxanne and such a success in doing good for others, it's very hard to not contemplating becoming an organ donor yourself. And that particular day, we were very successful, thanks to Roxanne.
Yeah.
So,
We
you know,
signed up
again,
over 30-something people. I think we signed up about 37, 38 people, which is
yes.
awesome.
Yeah, it was very successful. But again, it's putting that face, it's putting that person to that organ who's receiving it. And you also tell such a wonderful story about that young man that donated and what it did for the family afterwards, you know, for their grieving process. So it's very wonderful what you do.
Yeah. And people have to see that, you know, both sides of the organ donation. You know, I do tell my story and what I went through, but think of what that family went through. And for them to be able to see all of these people, and all of us are still alive, we're all still around, and for them to see us all doing I mean, especially think about the little girl. She was 5 years old and needed a kidney. She's in grade, you know, she's in junior high school now.
Yeah,
It's
one donor can save 8 lives, can give sight to 8 people, and bone or tissue can give 50 more people a quality of life that they would not have. So one person can save 8 people, and on top of that, help 50 others with tissue donation. It's really profound.
Yep, it is.
So let me go over the chat a little bit. Roxanne, people are saying you're very strong and very nice for registering so many people. And Allison is saying you can also indicate that you're a donor on your driver's license or in your advanced healthcare directives. Roxanne put the information for her show, her radio show, in the chat box. So I encourage everybody to go in there and look at that information so that you can next time and then every Wednesday after that, like, join her radio show.
And Dr. Geller is going to be on.
Oh, Dr. Geller is going to be on this Wednesday?
No, not this Wednesday.
Oh, one of these days. So we have to listen to all of them. Okay. Okay, for those that are not familiar, Dr. Geller is our executive director here at Nyack Hospital. So of course we love him. So Scott,
Yes.
Roxanne says education, education, education. Eileen, obviously, you know, it's giving us a lot of very great data that confirms that as well. What else have you perceived from the role of Live On to be barriers on people donating organs?
No, there are a couple of very common misperceptions. I think number one, a lot of folks think that it's going to interfere with their desires for burial, whether it be time constraints. Certainly they're concerned about how their religion treats organ donation. And it's very safe to say that the majority of major religions in the United States all look favorably upon donation and encourage someone's ability to have that last gift, to save a life through their life. Additionally, I think people are concerned that maybe they're not in good enough health to be a donor. And we always tell someone that you should never rule yourself out. And no one is too old, no one is too sick. Anybody can sign up to be and eventually become a donor. That determination will be made, you know, the determination will be made when it's necessary at the hospital by medical professionals. And as even I think Roxanne mentioned, even if you're HIV positive, you can be an organ donor. There's no rule out for organ donation. But I think probably the number one concern, and I'm really glad that we have Eileen on here today too, is because people are concerned that they won't receive the same quality of care. If they're enrolled to become a donor, that they won't be treated with the same urgency and respect in a hospital situation. And Eileen can immediately dispatch that because that's her job, is to save lives, not necessarily to facilitate organ donation.
Right, certainly. We would never change the level of care for anyone based upon something like that. Our goal is to bring back our patients to their highest level of wellness so they can return and resume to their activities of daily living. It is when a case becomes terminal and that there is no hope, and only after the family or the significant others are on board with the team, and you know, does that become a discussion. So it never would change or cease care. You know, that would really be up to the family, and when it's considered that there is no going back.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I have the feeling that a lot of people don't donate because of religion as well. Are there any specific religions, you know, like people from some religion are more reluctant than others?
I think that there's definitely historical and cultural reticence, But the reality of it is that I'm not aware of a religion that says no to donation. Even in Catholicism, the Pope himself is actually a registered organ donor. We have little informational brochures where he's given several presentations and made several comments about the importance of organ donation. Certainly throughout the Jewish community, again, there are different conversations that need to be had regarding the donation process, but that we have no shortage of scholars who've actually indicated once again that the ability to save a life through your life is the ultimate sacrifice, the ultimate goal, and they fully endorse donation. And again, I could go through the list of all of them, but again, all religion encourages organ donation because again, it's the ultimate gift.
And certainly we would most, encourage anyone to talk to their faith leaders in regards to any questions of that. And certainly if it was a family member or a patient in the family, we have a chaplain service. We could certainly, have someone come to speak to you on those terms as well.
Mhm.
I
No,
think a
I'm-
lot of people in our area have the idea that Hasidim don't donate. And I had a lot of, when I'm here, get a lot of pushback on that, but it's not true. It's not true at all. They definitely do. I have been to a synagogue or two with my story, and I've shared it at Rockland Community College with that group there, and people actually signed up. So I don't think anybody should, feel like any particular group doesn't do it. There's people in every group that have a problem with it, but as a group, I wouldn't exclude any group for religious reasons anymore. And like Scott said, the Pope did an edict, and when he did that edict, I was actually at Dominican and St. Thomas, and everybody was signing up. We signed up 56 people in one day.
And again, like what Scott said, it's the last gift that a person can give. It's the gift of life. It's that last selfless act that we can do for one another.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I think that it's all about that, right? Like it's generosity. I don't think that there is any religion in the world that stands behind generosity
That's true.
and saving lives.
And that's actually what the rabbi told me. He said, there's no religion that tells people not to help each other.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
So I'm getting some questions from the community here. Is there a restriction or different protocols to be followed related to LGBT organ donors?
Not that I can think of as far as any, again, there's no preclusion and things like that, would not really be factored into it. And that's why I did mention specifically Roxanne, a reference to Roxanne's comment as far as HIV positive patients can be donors. There's no exclusion and there's no special circumstances or considerations. Each person is evaluated as an individual based upon their health and their circumstances for donation.
Mhm. And another question is, if someone has organ donor indicated on a driver's license, can the family still object if the patient can't speak for themselves?
That's a bit of a tricky situation because again, I don't think nobody wants to make a difficult situation more difficult. And certainly there are times when families have a very difficult time accepting both the passing of a loved one and their determination or their decision to become an organ donor. Each circumstance is basically unique and specific. And we have trained professionals, social workers, therapists, caring staff who work with the family. I don't think anybody's there looking to make a difficult situation more difficult. But again, we do feel an obligation to honor the wishes of that individual. So we do go as far as we can to confirm that, yes, in fact, they did want to be a donor and then have that discussion with the family.
Mhm. And that's when talking to your family comes in. That's the most important thing, because we've had people who maybe even haven't signed up, but then a person in the family says, oh, we had a conversation and dad said he wanted to be organ donor and he didn't sign up, and sometimes if you have the conversations, even if you don't sign the paperwork, it still can happen.
Okay, and then you both just say very important words, honor and family. Eileen, tell us about the honor walk, because I know it's also a way to honor the families of the organ donors.
We're very proud of this at Montefiore Nyack, and we started this through the Organ Donor Council that we began last year. And when we have a family that is involved in organ donation and we have a donor, we have a beautiful honor walk that entails the patient being escorted from the ICU all the way, the pathway to the operating room where ultimately the organs will be retrieved. But the staff stands to attention in the hallways on both sides as the patient is escorted with the family following the patient to the operating room. And when we were practicing this and getting it up and rolling, it actually reduced the staff to tears, even just practicing what it would look like, because it is a very emotionally touching period of time. And we actually were honored to be able to do one pre-COVID. And it was a very generous donor who was escorted with the family following the bed to the operating room. And I think it was such a gift for the family. If the family chooses to do that, they have the option of participating or not having an honor walk. And it's accompanied by music that they can pick. One of our musical accompaniments is Amazing Grace. And it's just a beautiful tribute to that last selfless act. And I think it helps to give the family some closure, and it lets them feel the impact that they're having on everyone, including the donor recipients. So we're very proud of it here. COVID coming has kind of changed things a lot this year, but you know, going forward, I'm sure that we will be able to participate in some more of those. And again, there's a sad side to it. Someone has lost their life, but when you look at that positive impact of what they've given, it's very lovely. So thank you for asking that question.
No, thank you for sharing. I know I've witnessed that, and it crunches my heart when
Yeah.
I'm gonna do it. So, you know, I can only imagine how the families feel about that as well. And talking about families, it's Roxanne, do you keep in touch with?
I laugh. We do everything. We do everything. I mean, it's very rarely that I go more than probably a month without being in touch with them. They actually came, our anniversary was July 16th of our 10th year anniversary. Proud to say that. And they were on my show for the anniversary, which was just beautiful. They were on the show, the family and Senator Carlucci, and it was amazing. It was a great show. And basically, you know, we let them tell Michael's side of the story. You know, like I said, I always get to tell my side of the story, but they got to tell Michael's side of the story. And Mark Judelson just wrote a book called Michael's Legacy, and it tells the story of Michael. And he's a Rockland County native too, who wrote the book. So we're really proud of that.
Now, is that the usual, like the recipients and the families stay in touch or not?
Not like that, but I mean, we got a great, you know, we've got a great past together. We've done probably about 10 TV shows and commercials and all kinds of stuff. So we, you know, we make sure that we stay together in some kind of way. Like I was telling Scott before, the NFL just picked our story, so that we might be doing that again. So, you know, we like to stay in the press only because by being in the press, we know that we're able to affect change. People see our story and they inquire about it and they sign up, and that's all we want. That's all we want. So we do spend a lot of time doing things together. I see them physically usually about once a year.
From my vantage point as a nurse and working as a nurse for many years, I've actually been at the bedside when someone got the call to tell her that there was a liver for her. And, you know, those moments, they just stay with you and make an impression throughout your whole career. And at the same time, I've been on the other end of it where I was involved with someone young that passed away very unexpectedly. And I saw that piece of it where the parents actually donated everything. And it was terribly, terribly sad, but I've seen both sides of it. So the joy of knowing that you're going to be allowed to live and that organ is coming. I have a very dear friend from childhood. She donated her kidney to her husband, and he only had dialysis for 1 month, but she gave him the gift of life, and just fabulous, just really fabulous. So we have to look at both sides of it. Being there,
Absolutely.
gift come is something else.
And thanks for bringing that up, Eileen, because that's something that we haven't talked about. Scott, there are living donors as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we couldn't be chipping away at those numbers on the wait list if it weren't for the generosity of living donors as well. Specifically, I'm sure most folks are familiar with kidney donation. And I encourage anybody who knows somebody who's waiting for a kidney, or has heard of someone, or there's someone in their community, for them to go get tested, because it's an incredibly safe process. And everyone who actually, after donating a kidney, you can function just fine with the one remaining kidney that you have. It's becoming more common as well, I think, you see, as far as living liver donation. Believe it or not, a portion of the liver, upwards of 50%, can be removed from an individual and then transplanted into another individual. And what's so fascinating is that liver will regenerate in the donor as well as the recipient. So waiting for a liver is a tough time, and it falls into terrible health. So again, thankfully, people are now willing to come forward and become living donors through that process as well. So we strongly encourage that. As an organ procurement organization, we're not necessarily involved in that process. That falls to the transplant centers themselves, but we certainly are happy to educate, spread the word, and point people in the right direction if they'd like to become a living donor.
Okay, so are there any other organs? You mentioned liver and you mentioned kidney. Are there any other organs that can be donated from a live donor?
There are, I believe there are portions, I believe lobes of the lung. It's like a partial lung transplant is actually possible as well as I believe a partial pancreas transplant is possible. These are less common, but they are certainly on the forefront and probably will become more frequent as we move down the line.
Wow, that's very interesting. I mean, you hear about the stories, where like Eileen just said, like a wife, a daughter, a father, but I never thought that maybe part of my liver could go and save somebody else while I'm still alive. That's interesting to know. Okay, just a reminder to our attendees, if you have any questions, please either use the chat box or the Q&A box, because it's time to answer some more questions. Scott, anything else that you would like to add?
Yes, and I probably should have opened with this. I wanted to recognize and thank my colleague, Elaine Smiley, who actually worked with Eileen on a regular basis and whom I know facilitated this opportunity. So in addition to being grateful to you, Sandra, for highlighting donation, we couldn't have done this without Elaine. So thank you so very much to her.
Yes,
No,
Elaine is a powerhouse. Is wonderful, wonderful liaison for making many things happen. So we're very lucky to have her.
Yeah, this is great. It's a very important topic. When I knew, because next month is Organ Donors Day. Is that what it is?
October 8th is going to be Organ Donor Enrollment Day, which I think Eileen mentioned before. And while in the years past, it's been in person and face-to-face in the hospitals and shopping malls across our service area, this year, recognizing the circumstances, we are looking to move it to a bit of more of a virtual activity through social media posts, email, newsletters. But certainly if it's something that Montefiore Nyack is interested in, we would be happy to help them with an enrollment table once again this year.
Mm-hmm.
We will certainly chat.
Let me know, because if not, I'm going to be in the mall.
Okay. Roxanne, obviously, your story is magnificent. It's worth of an Oprah show. That's why you went there. So how has all this changed your life?
It's a whole different life. Whole different life. The things that I might have dreamed of before they came true, it's, what can you say? A person saved my life so I could have a new good life, and I have a purpose. And that's life, that's what my life is all about. There's nothing else I do, honestly, other than this. I advocate for organ donation and women's heart health. Those are my two passions. And because of those two passions, I've been able to travel all over the world to tell this story and to share the gift of life and my donor's story, which I'm very proud to share his story. It makes me really happy. And I know it makes his family happy, and that's most important to me. We're going to save lives. Like I was saying to somebody else, I said, there's 12,000 people that just signed up with me. I know there's more, but I actually physically had 12,000 applications in my hand. And if those 12,000 people go with the math that Eileen spoke about, that's 300,000 people that we could possibly impact. And, you know, there's no greater gift. You know, there's so many people that are sticking out here waiting. And I talk to people every single day that are on both sides of the, you know, the donation side and the recipient side. And there's so many people out there hurting both ways. And to be able to contribute to, you know, doing something to help somebody, it doesn't get any better than that. It really doesn't. So my life is simple and easy now.
Okay. Scott, I'm thinking I don't have the gift that Roxanne has, or more than one gift, I have to say, that Roxanne has. If I'm a supporter of organ donation, how can I talk to people? What can I say? I don't have a story to tell like Roxanne does, but what would be powerful words to go and tell people, you know, join us on this movement?
No, and I did back to your original point. Yes, if we had a few more Roxannes, there'd be no organ shortage in New York or the United States.
That would be great. We wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah, we can't do what we do without the volunteers and ambassadors like Roxanne. And I think you just mentioned it. It's because of that storytelling. It's because people get to put a name and a face to this, and it's not just some sort of abstract need that they'll hopefully will never have to deal with. Because really, who likes to think about their last few days on this earth? But again, meeting people who, like Roxanne, who have gotten a second chance and who have dedicated themselves to this cause, as well as the folks who are still on the wait list. It's terribly heart-wrenching. I think it was even, maybe somebody mentioned before, how many people, I think every 18 hours somebody dies waiting for that transplant. And that's not an exaggeration. That's terribly sad. People are removed from the wait list because their health has deteriorated so far that they're no longer going to qualify for a transplant. And that gets discussed very little. But I think, Sandra, to your question, I mean, we've touched upon a lot of the key points today. One, you're still going to receive tremendous quality of healthcare. It has no role whatsoever in how you'll be treated once you enter the hospital. And also, I think from a spiritual perspective, I mean, what more could you possibly give of yourself than yourself? And it's not to be crude, but a lot of folks always say, you know, you can't take it with you. And there's no point in doing that, because you, by making that decision, will save up to 8 different lives.
And it's really interesting that you say that. Every time I see Michael's family, the first thing his mother does, come over and touch my chest, and she goes, "There goes my heart." And every time I cry. Every time I cry. I mean, what's more beautiful than that? To keep the legacy of somebody else alive.
And Eileen, you've been on both sides of the story. And as a nurse working in a hospital and all of that, you know, you've witnessed a lot of things. So what will be your way of telling people to donate organs?
Just seeing both sides of it, like I said before, and actually being there when a woman who was very ill was told that there was a liver for her was just a wonderful experience. And that happened years ago, but I still carry that with me today, that someone gave that selfless gift, and that I'm sure it changed the whole course and the rest of her life and her family that loved her. We all love our family members. And, you know, when you lose someone that might have been saved by an organ donor, I can't even imagine what that feels like. But I just think it's a wonderful gift. And I encourage people to be organ donors. I'm one myself. My children have both signed up. It's on their licenses that they're organ donors, my husband as well, because we feel that strongly about it. I've taken care of many sick people for all of my career, and to know that someone can get off of a dialysis machine, to know that someone can get off a cardiac pump and have a productive life and work and take care of his wife and his children, it's really, truly wonderful if you see the results. And just with healthcare alone, we see so many people, like Roxanne referred to her length of stay in the hospital. That impacts all of us in one way or the other when we have such spiraling healthcare costs, you know, working to keep people alive. If we can give them an organ and give them quality of life, how much better could that be?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. I mean, these are very savvy words, like definitely, I think we're all supporters, but we need to get more. And that's what's really important, to know how to get because we can all be Roxannes, right? So we just need to find our way of being Roxanne. And we have one last question for one of our attendees. I think maybe Scott, you can help me with this one. Is there anything that will restrict a person from being a recipient of an organ donation? For example, if the reason they need an organ is because of a lifestyle choice, like, you know, a person needs a lung transplant because of smoking.
Absolutely. I mean, every transplant program is very diligent in their process before they'll even accept or list someone as waiting for a transplant. People who are on the wait list undergo extensive psychological evaluation to make sure that, yes, if you are in need of a lung transplant because you were a smoker, that for goodness sake, you're not going to start smoking again. Again, if perhaps you're on waiting for a liver because of alcohol abuse, again, the analysis is extensive to make sure that, and it's because, again, of the shortage of organs that is out there right now. So you don't want to give someone this gift and have them squander it. So you want to make sure that, yes, if they're a smoker, that they'll never be a smoker again. If they were a drinker, they won't be a drinker again. But also, very importantly, that once they do receive the transplant, that they'll take their medication diligently every day. People like Roxanne have to take anti-rejection medication. And sometimes folks get a little bit lax or a little bit lazy, and that can lead to a disaster. And again, once they've been given this gift, this second chance at life, you want to make sure they're going to take care of themselves and they're going to value it going forward. So yes, lifestyle choices can absolutely play a significant role in receiving a transplant or not.
That's interesting. Do younger people have a higher chance of being recipients than older people?
I think there's different wait lists. I know that there are different wait list categories for young and adults. Certainly, I think a factor for young adults when it comes to receiving a transplant is they're in better health. They'll be able to recover faster. They'll be able to live perhaps a longer life with that organ. Again, just like as we've seen even with the COVID-19 crisis, the younger adults or younger people, they're stronger. They can withstand a larger shock to the system than a lot of us can. So I think that certainly young adults benefit from their overall health and position when it comes to transplant.
And a last question that I have, can children be donors? And if they do, can they only donate to children, I imagine?
Well, I mean, as unfortunate as a topic, I guess, as this is, but yes, young adult children are donors. There are certain times in life and certain circumstances where a young adult's life comes to an end, where yes, they can become a donor. And by say young adult, even children, as you've referenced, yes, they can become donors. Frequently, because things such as blood type and body mass are factored into the matching for donation, yes, it will go to another younger individual, but not always. I was just on a Zoom call last night where a woman talked about receiving her liver from, I believe it was a young man, but because of his overall body size, and she was a frail, she was maybe about 100 pounds, because of her size, she was able to receive his liver. And again, I try not to be crude, but when you think about it, what we see on the outside is on the inside. What comes out, it has to fit. It has to fit in the package. So I guess like a young adult or a child's organs can be donated to a small individual or a shorter individual.
Yeah. But I guess you must be 18 to sign up, correct? Like kids cannot sign up themselves.
You can be 16 actually in New York State. That's a law that's changed and actually named after a Rockland County native, Lauren's law, that took effect, I think, 2012 maybe, Roxanne, that allows or requires that when you go to the DMV now, you have to say, yes, you want to be a donor, or no, you're not sure at this time. But that, because of that law, and then actually 3 years ago, I misspoke. 3 years ago, New York State lowered the age from 18 to 16 to register to become an organ donor. Since you're still a young adult, parents still have the ultimate say. But yes, when you go to the DMV to get that learner's permit, you can sign up to be an organ donor.
And the kids and we got to be proud of the kids in Rockland County were the advocates for that law. And the day that law was passed, we had a big celebration at Clarkstown South. Wow. And we signed up 100 kids in one day.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yes, they had the most organ donors.
That's great. So
yeah.
Thank you again for joining us today. This is a very touching topic, but it's very important. There are two sides to this story. It's a happy side, a not so happy side, but no matter which side, it can end well. And we are gonna end this chat very well because I have news for you. Oh, I have a gift for you. Where is the gift? I have to go get it, but for your participation, I have a gift for you that I'm gonna have to mail. Eileen, I'll bring your gift downstairs. I'll show you in a second what your gift is. But that's not the best news. The best news is that one of the people that was attending this chat today just signed up to be a donor. You know, she says, I was so inspired when I heard Roxana speak that I just became a donor. It was on my to-do list, but I just got to do it. So
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
it's good, right?
Yeah,
So
that's the best gift.
education, talking to people. Now I'm gonna start talking to people as young as 16, which I didn't know I could do before. You know, talk to their parents, and this is wonderful. So for our attendees, if you don't know, we're gonna have this chat again, this same topic next week in Spanish. So if you know anybody who speaks Spanish that you think might be interested on listening to us, next week, same time, 12 p.m. in Spanish. So invite everybody. And thank you again. Oh, let me show you. I'm gonna have to stand up because I have the gift right here. But we have a community here, community hero bear for you. That's our gift to you for being with us and for helping us and for helping the community. So I'll be mailing it to you. So I need your mailing address later in an email. Okay. So thank you very much. And thank you to all of our attendees for being here, and we'll chat next week.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.